Yeah, blanket.
Yeah, blanket type.
We have to wait, folks. We have to wait, folks, because the computer says 5:59.
No minutes?
No minutes.
Okay. Well, the Arizona Mining Company really has some nice gravel. I got this cactus berry, and it's 3/8" minus. Boy, it compacts nice, it looks nice in my driveway.
Pushes out on my road, I just take it, put it in the ditch.
There you go. Well, I was just looking for gravel.
We got quite a crowd tonight.
Stuff actually looks nice.
I'm running around for Jeff Smith, Nebraska Valley Supervisor, and Supervisor for
I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission, August 1st, 2017. Commissioner Armstrong, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Armstrong?
Here.
Commissioner Welker?
Here.
Commissioner Bacon?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Van Wuffen?
Here.
Commissioner Merritt? Oh, sorry. Chair Merritt?
Here.
Sorry about that. Vice Chair Hassiak?
Here.
All right, thank you. We do not have any minutes to approve for this meeting, so we'll push those off to the next regular meeting. We have any staff reports?
Chair Commissioners, just so you guys know, in the staff reports, at the end of the staff reports, we included the Robert's Rule, and so you guys can get familiar with that when the chair moves for a motion. Also, we have a new employee with us. He's been here about a month already. He's the Active Development Service Director. His name is Jason Sanks. I'm gonna give him the floor.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Really great to be here, be part of the team, and it's nice to have just met all of you. I look forward to working with all of you and moving forward on. Is it on? It's red light. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're recording. Great. It's great to be here. I just maybe want to take a moment to let you know a little bit about myself. I have been on board about 5 to 6 weeks. I've had a strong working relationship with our town attorney, Phyllis Smiley, as well as her firm, and Susan Goodwin and her firm. Not sure if she's ever had to sub in for Phyllis, but I've worked with them the better half of 15 years. And I currently have been working with them in the city of Litchfield Park, kind of about 6,000 people in the western Phoenix metropolitan area. My background and experience, like 20 years of urban planning experience in a variety of cities, initially working as a public planner on the municipal side. I've also had private planning experience working for developers, home builders, and also being self-employed for over 10 years running my own business as a consultant. So I spoke with Cecilia when I know, of course, as my predecessor Ruth Mayday left the position and left the town, and came up here and thought it was a great opportunity to work with you, and I'm excited to help assist you in your challenges and your forward growth. I know that you've got growth pressures coming, and I think your agenda attests to that. In terms of staff reports for current events, I'd kind of like to break this into two spectrums. One would be I'm actively working with Alex, who's been great, as well as all of the other staff members, Joanne in customer service, the clerk's office, of course, and others to help us improve processes. We've got several processes we're working on and improving. For example, there are items such as, how do we properly process lot splits and get them to meet our own code requirements, as well as the requirements of Yavapai County and the Yavapai assessor. We're working on file management systems. We're working on perhaps developing a site plan review process. You may know already there's a site plan review process outlined in our UDO. but we don't actually currently have an application for a site plan. So that's something that we should probably do to ensure we get quality growth and development. In terms of recent activities that are going on, we have feasibility and technical review meetings, every other week. So we had some kind of exciting new projects come on board as potentials. And I imagine as the Planning and Zoning Commission, you kind of like to keep your pulse on perhaps what forward growth may be coming your way. We recently had a feasibility meeting for a new fast food, Filiberto's drive-through Mexican restaurant. It's a fresh approach to the Filiberto's restaurant, which is of the same family but not the same technically company. And then they were looking at perhaps wanting to do a drive-through coffee kiosk on the same site. The Soda Barn is interested, and the old firehouse building that's just across the drive there. They're looking at perhaps renovating that and making kind of a quaint coffee shop out of it with a patio in the back. And lastly, I think, just for tonight's update, we recently had an inquiry on a site that was zoned MR1, but specifically for assisted living, just south of the Walgreens, kind of southwest of it. There's a site there, and they're looking at doing apartments for all ages, not age restricted, nor associated with assisted living. It would be an apartment project. So those are the latest things on the radar, and again, I'm excited to be here tonight. We've got a few items on the agenda. Alex will be presenting, I believe, the first couple of items. I will be representing the West Meadows PAD to talk about where we're at, why we're back, and what's happened since the last time you saw it. As well, I would like to introduce to you the concept of what we call discussion items or study session items, which is something that I've utilized in other municipalities that I think you'll find very helpful. And the reason being, when you have somewhat complex projects that we know are coming down the pipe, I would rather give you an opportunity and a window to get a heads up and see these. We can discuss them in a somewhat more informal way, in the sense that staff only makes a very brief presentation, presents you perhaps with some of the exhibits provided by the applicant. You can ask questions of staff and discuss internally in a more informal way, where it's not like we open a public hearing, we close a public hearing, because it's not a public hearing item. It's not been posted, nor do we take input from the public, nor do we ask the applicant to present and kind of make their case. We save that for the public hearing, but at least perhaps a month ahead of time, you've had a chance to get your minds wrapped around a project that might have some unique details and needs some extra thought. You don't have to do everything in one swing. So if maybe after we finish that up tonight at the end of the agenda, if you have some feedback on if you like that process, I'd love to kind of keep bringing that back. I have no doubt with the way the economy is going and the housing industry is going and the pressures that we are starting to see on the town, that we'll start seeing more subdivisions and commercial activity, perhaps that large industrial park, and we should start getting the idea of collaborating through the working session environment. So I'll cut my staff report section off at that, and we can get started on the public hearing items. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Item 6A, consideration and possible action regarding a proposal for a zone change for property located approximately 353 feet northwest of East Center Street and North Road 1 East intersection, from existing commercial light to SR1 single-family residential 1 acre minimum, and a minor general plan map amendment from commercial multifamily residential to medium density residential 2 acres or less for assessor parcel number 30623-063R and assessor parcel 30623-063S. Alex?
Chair, Commissioners, good evening. Before you have a proposal for a zone change and a minor general plan amendment. The property is located north, there's a mistake right here. It's supposed to be north, correction, northwest of Center Street and North Road 1 East. The subject properties consist of 2 parcels, each 1 acre parcel, identified with property address of North 1 East, and the other parcel doesn't have a physical address. Here's a few some basic information of the parcels. The parcels have a zoning of commercial light as stated before, each one is 1 acre. To combine together, it's approximately 87,120 feet, square feet, and the properties are currently vacant. The property is buffering the Chino Valley High School. It's located directly east of Chino Valley High School, and surrounding it is the land uses are residential. Here we have a zoning map. As you can see, as properties reflect the commercial light zoning. To the north of the subject properties, we see single-family residential 1 acre minimum, commercial light, agriculture residential 5 acre minimum. The land uses there are single-family residential and town of Prescott land, which is public land over here to the north. To the west, we have commercial, light agriculture, residential 5 acre minimum, and public land again, and that's identified as the high school, the Chino Valley High School. To the south, we have single-family residential 1 acre minimum, agriculture residential 5 acre minimum, and single-family residential 2.5 acre minimum. And the land uses there are single-family residence and vacant land. And to the east, we have agriculture residential 5 acre and a minimum, and it's vacant land and single-family residence. The land use designation of both parcels are commercial, multifamily, residential. The property owner is proposing to have both parcels rezoned to single-family residential in order to make these single or residential land uses. The general plan requires that the proposed zone change be in conformance with the land use or the general plan land use, and that is the case. That is not the case for these properties, and therefore the applicant is also applying for a minor general plan map amendment. She's requesting that the land use be changed from commercial multifamily residential to medium density residential 2.5 acres or less. Staff supports the applicant's proposal for a zone change. As you can see here in the zoning map, you see that to the north, to the east, and to the south, properties have a residential zoning and have a land use of residential. Although to the west, it has a CL AR5 zoning. That is, as we can see, that is the high school, and it'll stay as a high school for the future. And that is, in no future tense, going to be a commercial for that purpose. So the change of the single family residential 1 acre minimum is not going to have a negative impact on surrounding land uses or for the surrounding property owners. One of the general plan goals is to focus on development of community cores and the lifestyle choices of the land use. Strategy 2 and 3 identify, or strategy 2 suggests the protection of existing residents in large lot neighborhoods as new lifestyle choices develop. And that is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to change the zoning on it to protect that land use, the residential district land uses. Strategy 3 states to avoid proximity of incompatible land uses, and that is what the CL zoning is right now. It's an incompatible land use. If we check the UDO, some of the allowed uses in the commercial light district would be retail, business services, offices, and apartments. These type of uses are going to have more of a negative impact on the surrounding properties if the CL zoning stays as is. The staff also believes that that by leaving these properties commercial light, there's also gonna have a negative impact on the high school. We never know what type of commercial is gonna go there and how the relationship between the high school and that commercial, that future commercial there, the reaction it's gonna have. And so again, staff recommends a zone change from CL, commercial light, to single-family residential 1 acre minimum, and then the land use change of multi-residential commercial to medium density residential 2.5 acre minimum. The applicant is here. If you guys have, if the commission or chair have any questions, or any questions that you might have of myself.
Any commissioners have questions for Alex on this? If the applicant would like to come up and speak, you're welcome to do so. Okay. All right. So with that, we'll open the public comment portion of this part of the meeting. Anybody from the public would like to speak here? Seeing no volunteers, we're going to close the public portion of this part of the meeting. Any questions, any comments by any of the commissioners?
I would just like to commend staff, kudos for some structural changes in the staff report that has made it very easy readability for somebody like myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like the pictures, Alex, they make a big difference for us. Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval to Town Council of this request to rezone approximately 2 acres of real property located approximately 353 feet northwest of East Center Street and North Road 1 East intersection from commercial light to single-family resident 1 acre minimum, and a minor general plan amendment from the land use designation of commercial multifamily residential to medium density residential 2 acres or less.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have multiple seconds. All right. Any more comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving forward to item 6B, consideration and possible action regarding a proposal for zone change for a property located approximately 0.25 miles northwest of Road 1 West. Excuse me. I'm going to read that again. For property located approximately 0.25 miles northwest of North Road 1 West and West Road 2 North intersection at 1395 1395 West Road 2 North. So now that we're all confused, from existing AR5 residential 5 acre minimum to the proposed SR 2.5 single-family residential 2.5 acre minimum for assessor parcel number 306-21165. Alex?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Before you have proposal for a zone change, the applicant is Jay Parnell. He is not here. Mrs. Schuster has power of attorney, and she will be representing him tonight. Just a quick correction. The property, the staff report says that it's located a 1/4 mile northwest. Correction, that is southwest of Road 1 West and West Road 2 North. So as seen here, the property is located a 1/4 mile southwest of North Road 1 West and West Road 2 North intersection at 1395 West Road 2 North. It is directly south of Del Rio Elementary School and Heritage Middle School. And to the south of that, you have Mesa View Estate subdivision, Vista Bonita subdivision, and Fire Sky Ranch subdivision. Basic information of the parcel. The parcel is 5 acres. Has a zone, and the zoning reflects that. The underlying zoning has a zoning of AR5 agriculture residential 5 acre minimum. Currently, Currently, the parcel has a land use of residential. To the north of the subject property, we have zoning of state, which is represented as state land, and PL, public land. The land uses are the Heritage Middle School, as stated before, and Del Rio Elementary School. To the west, we have AR 2.5, agriculture residential 2.5 acre minimum, and public land. Land uses are single-family residential in town of Chino Valley, right here. The purple little sliver right here is town. There's a town well, as I believe. To the south, single-family residential 1 acre minimum, agriculture residential 5 acre minimum, and single-family residential 2.5 acre minimum. Land uses there are single-family residence, Mesa View Estate subdivision, and Vista Bonita subdivision. To the east, we have agriculture residential 5 acre minimum, and land uses are single-family residence and vacant land. The applicant has applied and is requesting a zone change of AR 5 to AR 2.5 in order to divide the land or divide the parcel. So the applicant went forward through the citizens review process and notified neighbors within a 300-foot radius. And they had a neighborhood meeting last month, and the neighbor to the west and the east attended that said meeting. And neighbor to the west didn't have any issues with it. The neighbor to the east had an issue about dust control. As you see here, this is the proposal of the applicant, how he wants to divide the land. He wants to create a flag lot. And because of that, the neighbor here had issues about dust control. So he wanted to know how the applicant was gonna control the ingress egress of the parcel to the rear. Staff had discussions with the applicant about the limitations of lot splits. Therefore, that's why staff is working on cleaning up the process of lot splits. One of the things that the parcel, the frontage on the parcel, if they're given up as town requires, and if they're gonna create a flag lot, that the width on the flagpole not exceed 50 feet, and the flagpole itself not exceed 330 feet. Applicant is aware of that, and he was gonna go forward with a lot split once he gets, if town gives them the proposed zone change on it. The staff supports the applicant's request for zone change. As we see here in the zoning map, to the west of the subject property, the underlying zoning on it is 2.5 acre minimum. Directly to the west and the east of him is also 2.5 acre minimum. So by him rezoning his property to 2.5 acre minimum, it's going to support the land uses and the zoning around him directly to the west and to the east of subject property. The applicant is here, or power of attorney, Mrs. Schuster is here, who's representing the applicant. And any questions you might have on myself as well.
Anybody on the commission have questions for Alex?
Yeah, if I could ask one, I noticed in your public review and hearing process that the neighbor to the east was concerned about dust control since the access to the property
Yes.
running right along the front, and he suggested gravel or something, but I see no action. Was the applicant willing to take some action to that favor or not?
The applicant hasn't been here, and that's why Mrs. Schuster is representing him, and that's something that the applicant will get notified by, and that those discussions will proceed once he goes forward with a lot split. Right.
So the applicant doesn't know anything about this yet? The power of attorney can't make that decision? Is that what we're looking at?
I believe if Mrs. Schuster maybe might share more information about this, but
Okay.
I believe that some type of gravel or might be put in place to control that dust.
Okay, I look forward to hearing from Mrs. Schuster then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else have any questions for Alex?
Yes, Alex, I have a question. 50 feet for a flagpole for the flag panhandle portions really seems onerous. I'm more accustomed to seeing 25 feet.
That's in the UDO. That's what the requirements are in the UDO.
I would like to perhaps have a discussion with the commission on perhaps narrowing that to 25 feet, as done in other communities.
Thank you, Commissioner Bacon. I can address that. In regards to the UDO requirements, through this procedure today, since it's requested that they are doing a zone change without a planned area development overlay, there's no provision to modify the underlying district standards. But what I am hearing is that you feel that 50 feet is onerous for a flag. 50 feet is typical for a right-of-way or a city street.
Yes.
But for a flag, if you believe it should be less than that, then we could consider that for an initiation of a text amendment to the ordinance, through future updates, and then reduce that as we vet that process. So we duly noted, but in this case, we wouldn't have the ability to reduce it here. The other thing that you do have the ability to do, if Ms. Schuster is able to address this and commit on behalf of her, I'm not sure if it's a relation or a client, if she has power of attorney over decisions, you could request as a stipulation for approval on the zoning case that they provide a dust control drive surface to the new flag lot.
So just to clarify, we cannot change the 50-foot right-of-way because that's what the UDO specifications call for.
That is correct. In the event that, as you were very well aware of the planned area development overlay process, that permits the ability to modify underlying district standards, but that's usually a request that's driven by an applicant rather than the P&Z, and it would have to have been publicly noticed and processed that way, or trigger this process to start over again with that request to modify it for that specific purpose.
Okay.
For clarification, I understand that, but I'm wondering if that could be considered by staff for a future code amendment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Certainly, I'll add it to the list.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the staff? Would the owner's representative like to step up to the microphone and speak? When you come up to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
Mary Schuster, and as of right now, I don't have an address, but I'm representing Jay Parnell. Just in response to the gravel, if Jay does split the lot and builds behind there, then he will put a dust control in that drive. But if he doesn't do anything with that lot, then he'll just keep it as is. So right now, it's just vegetation, so there shouldn't be an issue. Is that the only thing?
So you're stating that the owner will agree to do a dust control driveway if the lot is finally split, is that correct?
If it's built, if there's a site built back there, yeah, he will.
So if it's put to use, then he'll do the,
Yes,
okay.
correct.
Anybody have any other questions?
I just have one comment, and, I think you're asking for what might be.
Pull the mic over to you, dear.
Okay, I think what you're asking for is, a couple 100 feet in length and 20 feet of gravel, because one person has concerns about dust. I've lived in Phoenix and they have dust storms. I've lived up here and we have dust storms. I know we've had other flag lots developed here. There's one right next to this proposal. And I don't think that comment is to dust control for one property, and I don't know what that's gonna cost. That might create a burden as to even selling that lot by having to put some kind of a dust control for a few 100 feet. It's only a comment.
And I definitely don't wanna set a standard either. I mean, there's a lot of flag lots that aren't, yeah, like you said, they don't have dust control, so.
I mean,
But he'll consider it. I mean, if there was a house built back there.
I kind of agree with Mr. Pasiak. I think it could be a financial burden for anybody who's looking to purchase that lot if they want to build a home back there. When you look at the area around the properties, the potential for dust is enormous, as it is all over town. And my thought is, unless we're putting a trucking operation back there and running trucks in and out all day long, one family member or two family members or five family members going in and out, I don't think would be that much of a problem. But that's my opinion. So I have a problem with the financial burden, though, on the property owner.
That's good to hear.
Anybody have any other questions?
It's only a consideration of the neighbor next. I'm not entering it as a stipulation on approval of this by any means.
Okay. Any other questions for the representative? Thank you. Okay, we'll open the public portion of this meeting for this item. Anybody from the public like to step up and speak? Nobody wants to step forward, so we'll close this portion of the meeting. Any comments, questions regarding this issue? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval to town council. Thank you. I move to recommend approval to the town council of this request to rezone approximately 5 acres of real estate, approximately 0.25 miles northwest of North Road 1 West and West Road 2 North intersection at 1395 West Road 2 North from AR-5 agricultural residential 5 acre minimum to SR 2.5 single family residential 2.5 acre minimum.
Do we have a second?
Point of order. Wow, that's really loud. Mr. Lerma corrected that northwest designation to be southwest.
I'll amend to say southwest.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching that. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, moving forward to item 6C, consideration of possible action regarding a request to amend ordinance number 07-690 pertaining to the West Meadows Planned Area Development PAD by amending the development plan and changing the conditions of development for approximately 46 acres of real property generally located within the 133-acre West Meadows Planned Area Development. With the SR .16 single-family residential 7,000 square foot minimum lot area zoning district with a planned area development overlay zoning district PAD to provide for an age-restricted development with required community amenities and open spaces, modify landscaping, lot coverage, rear setback, and building height requirements, and to allow approved planned development plan. Director Shanks.
Thank you, Chair. And Commissioners, this is a bit of deja vu, I imagine, since you just saw this on June 6th. I wanted to clarify with, there's a couple items involved in bringing this project back, and one is in working with Town Attorney Phyllis Smiley, we recognize that the way the property had been publicly posted or the notice of public hearing had been written, it hadn't specified more clearly how this is a portion of a larger PAD in the language, nor did it kind of clarify that it was an age-restricted community, active adult 55 and over. And she felt that that was an important nexus, if you will, to bring it back through the process and give you one more opportunity to look at it. You may very well before, just as you did before, but I did also want to take the time to kind of represent it and let you know that there's what I believe is an improved land plan. So that time actually bought us some window to talk about the items that the commissioners were concerned about in terms of amenities and site design and things like that. So with that, I'll kind of go through the process. And Alex is just great on the graphics here. I didn't do this myself. I just borrowed some of his work from last time, I'll be honest. And so specifically, the properties are located here, same property as before. Nothing's changed in terms of the site. The exception property, although it says subject properties there, you can see the existing residences will be retained and not part of the development. They'll really be, the southern yellow rectangle will be really the phase one, the kind of initial flagship, if you will, of this concept. And then phase two will ensue depending on the success of phase one. One thing that brought to my mind in meetings with Mr. Fletcher, and Mr. Fletcher and I and his engineer and Alex have met several times to discuss this, and in projects that I've dealt with in the past, I did have a concern, not that I don't wish the project well and to be successful, that what happens when you decide that you're gonna put all your amenities in phase two, and you start with phase one, and then that's all you get? Say it doesn't work. Maybe there's just a market for one, and then you didn't get any of the amenities. Mr. Fletcher agreed, and they've changed the land plan and a significant amount of amenities in phase one, which more or less promises the initial residents of the project that they'll have the amenities they bought into, or I should say rented into. So, some more locational analysis. I know you've seen this before. The uniqueness of this case is that it was zone SR .16 with an intention of being a somewhat a standard smaller lot subdivision of approximately 7,000 square foot lots. The concept has been reinvented to examine the allowable density under that zoning district and in turn it into still the same number of possible effective living units, but they would be planned and allocated in a different manner with a kind of a different housing type and whole kind of living concept, if you will, through the park models, which I believe you guys discussed last time. This was the original plan, if you will, kind of a phased subdivision, primarily taking access to the west. There's no access really to the east. And the portion of the project, I think I have a laser pointer here, right? Well, it doesn't really work, but the west half of the project is what's subject to the amendment, and that's what we clarified in our language. The east half of the project is not fully controlled by Mr. Fletcher and is not a part of this amendment. So really it's a partial amendment to the original PAD. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can do that. That makes it easy. So I thought I'd dress up this slide, and I myself am coming to terms with all the details surrounding what park models are versus mobile homes versus RVs versus those sorts of things. And I know that we've gone through this before, at least I saw in the minutes it's been discussed, that the current UDO doesn't define, differentiate between site-built, stick-built, or manufactured housing. And really the park model concept is a hybrid between a recreational vehicle, which it can be titled as, and similarly taxed like an RV, but lives more akin to a small mobile home and a more cottagey, kind of cute little version here where you can add a porch on it, you can add a carport or some storage. And so the zoning request really is to continue to utilize the underlying zoning district, but use the planned area development model, which is intended for flexible zoning or unique projects, to allow Mr. Fletcher to develop his property, yet retain ownership of the entire property, and rent spaces that would be relatively oversized for what a park model would typically need. I mean, when you're averaging a unit per 7,000 square feet, which you could put a site-built house on, but yet you're just using it for something the size of a park model, which is only around 400 square feet of livable space, you're gonna have some room around these. They're gonna be kind of spread out. It's not gonna be where you see them in some developments. If you go up to Prescott Valley, they're kind of packed in, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a different sort of concept. So that's the intent, that's why the PAD is in place here. And associated with the PAD is the development plan, which you've been familiar with in the last iteration. I wanted to recap your project history. You did forward a recommendation onto the town council for approval of this request on June 6th. I went through these items here below that discuss why we are bringing it back. And again, I think it's been a good thing. We've improved it and I'll show you the plans for the improved amenities for the project. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna escape out of here and show you, I think I do it. There we go. And I think it's the PDF. Let me just break it down. Yeah, I'll minimize it. Sorry, my first time using this format. Thank you. And I'll go through the new plan. Okay, so I know it looks kind of small. I wonder if I could do full screen on here. Where's full screen? Let's get rid of that thing. I need page thumbnails. It's a little bigger. I think you'll get the idea. The concepts are the same. Phase 1's the same phase 1. Phase 2 is the same phase 2. When I sat down with them, with the engineer and with Jim, I said, you know, when people are coming home to their new neighborhood, and let's for a moment think that one of us may want to buy a park model and rent a space in this project. When I come home, I don't want to come into a street that's got 50 park models lined up all in a row. It's like a speedway, and that's kind of like the original plan was. Or you pull in and you look at the side. The first thing you see is the side lot of a park model, someone's driveway and a carport. I said, generally, what I prefer in land planning design is that when you come in, the first thing you see is the clubhouse, and you see the amenities, and you see the pool, and the tennis courts, or the bocce ball, or whatever you'd like to do, and that's what we've done. They moved, not only did they move the primary amenities over from phase 2, they moved them over to phase 1, and it's gonna be the entrance. So you come in and you see I call it the pretty stuff first. And that's how people are gonna identify their neighborhood when they come home every day. They're gonna come home and that's the first thing they're gonna see. They'll come in, they'll take a left or a right, and then they'll go, down the street to their prospective unit. Same way here, this one's they have to do a little loop-de-loo here. But the nice thing about being in the cul-de-sac end is that they'll provide probably a pedestrian connection so they can still walk easily right into the amenity and use it rather than having to loop all the way around and come back in. We still wanted to make sure that there were additional amenities in phase 2. There are amenities across the western portion, and then there are some passive amenities here, and then also over here, maybe open space, and a nicer place to perhaps run their dogs, but again, it'd be more passive with the clubhouse amenities here. The idea that Mr. Fletcher conveyed was that should this continue to work out and grow, that this portion of the property that you can't see here, but the other half of the land plan, the primary amenity area would then become centralized because you'd have all of this stuff here, and then the project would grow over here into what is currently not a part of the amendment. And so that's the long-term intent. So those are the improvements that we've made since then, and I think that they've done a nice job accommodating our requests, even up to the last minute, so that we could bring back a better project to P&Z for your re-recommendation and evaluation for the town council. I believe that's all I really had to add for this, and I know, of course, Mr. Fletcher's here to answer any questions on this refreshed version of West Meadows.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Sanks, excuse me?
Thanks, that's okay.
Was that the last time when we considered this, was there any type of connection between phase 1 and phase 2 for access to amenities? My memory is not solid on that.
Again, Commissioner Bacon, there was a request I saw in the bullet points, I believe it's in the staff report, to link them. At this time, my understanding from Mr. Fletcher is to cross here would be through someone's property. I'm not sure exactly how they would connect, but the idea, I'll let you address it. Well, right here. Right, well, that's more or less, it wouldn't be right where. Right, well, that's more or less crossing from one entrance of the development to the other entrance of the development, as opposed to a more internal connection across the not a park property. In the future, should this come in, my understanding there would be a relatively large open space area that would be contiguous and then connect the developments in the back. So for now, it would just be more or less along the existing street.
I think our concern with the connection was all of the amenities were gonna be on one side of the development, and we wanted the other side to have access to it, but by splitting it like you guys have done here, I think that remediated that issue. I don't know.
They are kind of flipped, I'll be honest. I recognize these amenities are in the back and these are in the front.
They
But-
kind of went against your rules, but knowing that it's gonna be developed in the future from the other end makes a lot of sense.
Right, and and in terms of being able to have the opportunity to really make the project successful, and if you will, I don't really consider selling a project from a land use or planner perspective, but if you put all the nice stuff up front, and I'm thinking, where do I want to live in Chino Valley? And I pull in and I see this, wow, that's the first thing I think of, and then I may have more proclivity to actually, or to rent there, so.
Anybody have any other questions?
Yeah.
Claude?
Originally, when this was first proposed 7 years ago, The owner agreed that he would actually do lots at around 9,000 square feet instead of 7. As you know, the neighbors are not necessarily delighted with this, with the whole development. And I would like to know, are we looking at 7,000 square foot or 9,000 square foot lots?
Commissioner Baker, the density correct, right now is calculated on a basis of 7,000 square foot. The prior request for, that ended up at was kind of it hadn't necessarily been advertised that way, but it was added kind of more or less at the last second as a way to kind of be enough to push the council over to make the decision to approve it at 9,000. But since he has requested to amend the development plan, his request right now is to more or less bring it back down to the equivalent density of a 7,000 square foot lot, rather than the 9,000. So that's certainly open for deliberation amongst the commission, whether you agree to that. If the current density on his math of a 7,000 square foot lot equivalent is acceptable, or if you still believe 9,000 is better. And that would certainly change the plan and reduce the number of rental units.
It was our understanding in the last meeting, and somebody correct me if I'm mistaken, that the 7,000 square foot requirement was part of the original zoning of the housing development.
The SR
That's correct.
.16
But
equates
he had
to
agreed that
7,000.
he would make it 9,000 in actuality. That was the original agreement back in '07.
That's correct.
Okay, okay.
The base zoning is a 7,000 lot, and more or less he agreed to a 9,000 square foot lot to get it approved. He felt, I mean, at that point, there was like a negotiation to oversize the lots for the zoning district to 9,000.
And these were for site-built, multi-thousand square foot homes.
Yeah.
It could be for site built, or it could, again, we don't regulate, it could be, someone could place theoretically a mobile home on the lot as well.
But the intent was it was a housing development, not some sort of.
Be simple owner occupied lots.
Correct, okay.
Yep, you got
So
it.
something suitably larger than a 390 square foot park model home would fit on these properties.
Certainly upwards of a home of 2,000 or even 3,000 square feet can fit on a 7,000 square foot lot. This is really the whole concept is just completely different. It's whether or not the commission feels that this lifestyle, active resort, small cottagey, and again, it is, they're really, leasing up to, their idea is up to a 12-month lease, or there can be shorter term rentals. So it can I would say, attract the short-term seasonal snowbird, if you will, winter, since it is active adult, or someone that wants to live year-round in a small home.
Anybody have any other questions for staff? One of the concerns I have is the 12-month lease agreement. Is it able to be renewed so they don't have to move out at the end of the 12 months?
Well, I'll let Mr. Fletcher answer. My understanding is that should they want to continue living there, they simply renew the lease.
Okay, thank you. Would the owner like to step up to the microphone? Please state your name and address when you get there.
My name is Jim Fletcher, 3329 North Road 1 West is my home.
Thank you.
Chair and Chairman, I'd really appreciate the help that I've gotten from the town, from Jason and Alex through this process. And I'm here to answer any of your questions.
Well, I guess for me, I'll start out with the question I just asked Mr. Sanks. There's a 12-month lease agreement. At the end of that 12 months, is there an opportunity for the person to continue leasing the facility?
Yes, we hope they don't move.
Okay.
So, as many times as they want to release them, yes. But we want to give them the flexibility, if they do want to move, that they can leave in 12 months.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions
I
or
do.
comments?
I know it's hard to project this, and you can't tell me 20 years from now what the lot rent's going to be, but what do you propose at this point?
Right now, we're between 350 and 400.
Okay. My thought about the lot size, because this is going to be an active adult, meaning seniors living there, is they probably don't want a larger lot because they don't want to have to take care of it. A lot of these folks are not going to be in their prime physical state when they move there.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with the lot size, because I don't think that'll cramp them together like
Right.
some parks do. But the other question I had in the green areas, and I'm trying to remember from my documents I read at home, is there not allowance in those green areas for water runoff or water retention in the event of heavy rains and so forth?
There are some retention areas down on phase 2 and 1 on it would be the north side.
Okay,
That's the way the land flows, the
okay,
water flows. There are a series of different small satellite parks, and in those areas will be a park area too.
okay,
They'll be able to use those areas as passive uses, to walk their
Okay.
dogs and walkways and things.
okay. My concerns with flooding, just to make sure that there's enough drainage for these homes that they don't get washed out or the roads get washed out. I've lived through, that was in the 70s when we had the 3 100-year floods in the same week or within the 10 days. And so I just wonder how much prepared you are for that, but it looks like you've done what you can do.
Well, yeah, we have an engineer on board, and they'll be able to do all the flood calculations and get them approved with the county.
Okay.
And
Just as a comment, the town itself will have oversight over what their site engineer does to make sure that it
Mhm.
meets all of the current requirements, which
Sure.
includes retention ponds. That's part of the development process.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Anybody else have any questions? Any comments? I would like to compliment this plan is much nicer and more thought out than the first one.
Yes.
We
Thank you.
appreciate
It
the
is.
extra effort here.
Well, I appreciate the help.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to open the public portion of this meeting. If anybody in the public would like to step up and make a comment, you have 3 minutes to speak. Please be concise and polite.
Hi, I'm Karen Friend. I live at 1960 West Road 4 North. I have a lot of concerns about this development. For one thing, it just doesn't seem to fit in with the surrounding area, which is, as Alex described, large lot neighborhood. And I guess it's already been rezoned, so I have no argument there. But I did not know these were going to be rentals, which just makes things worse in my mind. In the $350 to $400 range is rather inexpensive, and as somebody described, the Perkinsville Estate active adult community that did not get approved, it's going to become a low-income ghetto, in my opinion. I also don't know why these have to be park models, which we all know trailers and mobile homes and manufactured homes never increase in value. I used to live in them. I owned one. I know from personal experience. And I don't know how Chino Valley, the infrastructure, is going to handle 400 plus more individuals living in the neighborhood, especially 55 plus, who are going to need doctors, and the current residents can't even find doctors. So you put those grocery stores. We don't have. Where are we getting the water for this? I mean, I can go on and on. There's just so many things that just doesn't fit into the surrounding neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Step up to the microphone, state your name and address, 3 minutes, and be polite.
Gene Van Horn, 2866 Cassie Lane. I would like the developer to address the issues of water and sewer on the project.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Please state your name and address.
My name is Darren Mahoney, 1629 Bumblebee Drive. I'm a little, the 55, is that, if there's two people, husband, wife, whoever, Are they both to be 55 and over? Or is it just one resident has to be 55?
We'll have to bring somebody up and answer that question.
And my concerns too were the sewer and the water. But, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Fletcher, would you be able to answer the age requirement? Please step up and speak.
I believe the state statute is one, has to be 55 or older.
Okay.
As far as I know, don't hold me to that, but it's the best I can answer at this point.
All right, thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
I have a question. On this, excuse me, goodness gracious. On this age limitation, is there any limitation on the younger age? What I would fear we would have there would be a family consisting of 1 55 and 3 18.
I don't know the requirement that the state has on the over 55 and retirement communities. I believe it's a retirement community, whereas it's not for children to live. So I think if it's a family, would think they would have to live somewhere else. I believe it's for over 55.
Let's take a break here. I'd like to finish the public comments and we'll make a list of questions and then we'll I jumped the gun myself, so I apologize for getting us out of order here. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? All right, I'm going to close the public portion of this meeting and now we can start addressing some of the questions. I see Mr. Sanks furiously dialing on his phone there to see if we can find an answer for our question here. So that is a concern that we have. As far as the water and sewer, maybe Mr. Fletcher, you could kind of enlighten these folks on the development?
Well, the sewer will be addressed with, as far as the county standards for the sewer.
So it'll be an on-site
It'll be
system?
on-site until you get to phase 4.
Okay.
And then it would have to be a lift station that would be pumped across road location of the main storm, or not storm sewer, but sanitary sewer lift
Okay, and
station.
then how about for water?
Oh, it'll be a domestic water use on-site. We have 2 big irrigation wells there that'll be converted.
Okay. Does any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Fletcher?
I have just one.
Step up to the microphone.
I'm 53 years old this year. My youngest son is 10 years old. Would I be able to move in there?
You know, I would have to look at the state statute and define that, what the state.
I just looked that up. If 55 or older, you have to have 1 person, and nobody under the age of 18 can live there.
There you go. Does that answer your question, sir?
And that's per state statutes for that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so 1 person, 55, and then nobody under the age of 18.
Yes.
Claude, did you have some other comments or questions?
No, if that's the state statute, that's it.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move. I mean, we've forwarded this to the town council once before, and I think this is a better plan. And I know we discussed the 55 adult community at the last meeting also. So I move to recommend approval to the town council of this request to amend a portion of the West Meadows planned area development for approximately 54.5 acres of its 132.8 acres of real property located 0.33 miles north of the northeast corner of West Road 4 North and North Road 1 West, along with its associated new development plan.
Okay, I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I
Motion.
will abstain.
We have one abstention by Commissioner Baker. All right, the motion passes. All right, moving on to item number 7, non-public hearing action items. Do we have any of those?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Chair. All right, again, this is, Alita, we have Mr. Fletcher here as well for another proposal. So just so you know, right now we have an application pending for the Town Center PAD. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, whether you worked on it originally or you've seen it in the past. So again, to kind of recap the kind of format that we have here tonight, since this isn't a public hearing item, we haven't sent out notices. This is an opportunity for informal discourse, generally between staff and P&Z only, so that when the time the public hearing comes, that's when both the applicant and any interested parties or neighbors would have the opportunity to have equal opportunity to come up and speak. So this is really like the preview of the Town Center PAD amendment request initiated by Mr. Fletcher. Years past, in the mid-2000s, the property was rezoned primarily to commercial light. The entire property, which includes all of the parcels along SR 89. But you'll see over here on the left, you'll know that Mr. Fletcher successfully completed construction of the Days Inn and operated that for several years before selling it. We also have the bank down here on this corner. These pads are currently vacant, commercial light, all the way through here. And if you've driven back there, you'll see the street network has been, at the time, the Fletchers committed to an improvement plan, a set of improvement plans for this property to bring utilities to it, as well as improve the streets and provide curbs and drainage, etc. And in return, they were able to receive a partial sales tax rebate for so as development on that property ensued, in particular the Days Inn, as they collect their sales tax related to room rentals by night, the Fletchers were able to get a partial reimbursement on the cost of those infrastructure improvements that they made, which were well over $500,000. Unfortunately, as for all of us involved, we had the recession. So commercial didn't develop as quickly as hoped, but there was some commercial sales tax rebated back to the Fletchers in the amount of approximately $150,000 or $60,000. I don't have the exact numbers. It's really not part of the development plan. It was a rebate incentive plan that went directly to council. But I just wanted you to be aware of the kind of the general context of getting to where we're at now. So that plan's set to expire in early, I think, 2019. So the development proposal that's proposed here, by the time anything actually got reviewed, approved, and built, would likely have no impact on that rebate of sales tax. I don't know that we could move that quickly if you were to move forward and recommending approval, should anything get built. So getting back to land use, just prior to
Excuse
my,
me.
oh, go ahead.
Can you hit that plus
Yes.
symbol
Thank
up
you.
there and blow
Thank
that thing up a bit?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
let's do that. I'm
Over
sorry.
to the left a
Thank
little
you.
bit more.
I just gonna see if I can go to 50. There's 25.
Yeah, a little bit larger, please.
Just
I
hit the
like
plus
people-
symbol, it'll go up
Where
one
is it,
more
Wes?
size.
I should see it, it's right there.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, which one is this right here?
You- Oh,
I'm
it'd
not
be
connect-
helpful if you could still enlarge it more so I could read everything there, what's happening.
We're getting close.
Let's see if I can zoom this thing even more. There's usually
You
a
need a
little
magnifying glass.
No. Well, I guess if I go back out of full
Yes,
screen.
you go back.
And then I can just zoom in again.
Yes.
And then, let's see. All right. Oh, there we go. That'll stretch it out. That's right. I'll get good at this at some point. Let's see if I can go like 35%. All right. I think this is as big as.
How about 45%?
Well, you want to go to 45?
It won't fit.
I'll
Or
cut
40.
the corners off. So, but what I'll do is, I know what I'll illustrate exactly what he'd like to do. So-
This is better, much better.
So currently the property is on commercial light, which allows for a variety, and the primary intent, of course, is for commercial type uses. And specifically, The hope in the time was to develop commercial light uses that would generate retail sales tax dollars and also employment opportunities for the town. You know, at this time, Mr. Ledger's been trying to sell this property for some time in pieces or in whole. Hasn't had very much success, even through the downturn. And even now things are picking up, it's still been slow to return. As you know, when economic recoveries happen, often the rooftops and residential comes first, and then commercial lags after to service those residents that are already there. They create the market, and then the market comes there. So he's kind of evaluated what he'd like to do with the property, and has initiated an application and filed it here with the town to develop a couple concepts here. And that is, it's gonna sound really familiar with the park model concept, perhaps, but on somewhat smaller rental spaces on this kind of aqua color portion in the back here. So the existing road that comes in off of Fletcher Court, you have that Days Inn right here, you keep going, you'll pass it. You'd like to do an RV park right here and utilize the planned area development overlay flexibility to allow that to happen in excess of 25 RVs. Right now, he could do it up to 25 RVs with the, I believe, the CUP. And then over here, he'd like to do park model concept, which in a way, in this proposal, the PUD this is like an RV park, but a kind of a glorified RV park, if you will. It's more permanent residences, although they are about the same size as a large RV. The centralized amenity area, I've kind of come back to this. I've been, kind of trying to assist him and his engineer as well, that we would want to see centralized park amenities, so that as you come in the project and pass that Days Inn, the first thing I don't see is the broadside of an RV, but rather the clubhouse and amenities and those. And then the RV park could enjoy those amenities. The park model rental units could enjoy those amenities. And then ultimately, he would like to see assisted living, which has, been proposed several times in the town. And with the, kind of the predominance of this growth and age-restricted communities, and from a planning perspective, it makes better sense to cluster an assisted living facility in and around a 55-plus community, so that if someone were to age in place and become ill and need additional care, they could do so here, and then their life partner could more easily visit them on a daily basis should they need that, or they could just move in together. It just really depends on the nature of the facility that develops. And we're seeing that occur not just here in Chino Valley, but throughout in other parts, and of course Prescott, and then throughout Phoenix area, as we're seeing age in place, or what we call continuum of care facilities, so that you don't end up with the one spouse 20 miles away in a nursing home and the other one in their house somewhere else. I'm working on a community right now called La Loma that's in Litchfield Park, where it will be all housing types, all the way from large homes up until condos and townhomes into assisted living, and then almost end of life care. And that is and they have commercial amenities and activities and lakes and recreation. And it's really a beautiful place, because it's not something you should have to contemplate when someone's ill, that you should have to live apart in the most vulnerable days. And so this is why we're interested in seeing these sorts of things clustered together. One thing to note, and of course the concern came up, are we losing a lot of retail, prospective retail? And of course it's important to fund the city services with retail sales tax dollars. I'll remind everyone, not just with this project, but with West Meadows, although I didn't bring it up, rental units generate rental tax dollars. So we don't have a property tax that I'm aware of. I was told we don't, but we do have rental taxes. So the town would benefit still if we forego commercial, which may or may not be very viable on such an interior portion of this property away from SR 89 where all the traffic and visibility is. Should we consider an alternative development type, but it would still generate revenue and provide housing choice in Chino Valley, where we do seem to have kind of a dearth of housing. I even looked myself, if I wanted to rent a place myself up here while I work here, there's not much on there. So this kind of provides a flexible housing sort of choice. And I will point out the benefits of single ownership. When we look at these, the difference between a platted mobile home park, if you will, where some people might perceive that a mobile home park could decline in value. We did have a resident speak and say, these units, they depreciate, they don't appreciate. They almost depreciate like vehicles do, perhaps on a longer term basis. And then you have property maintenance issues that often pop up. Well, when you have a single ownership of a facility like this, you have a single point of contact and responsible party for the upkeep and maintenance of the entire project, whether it be perimeter landscaping or their amenities, rather than having to chase after 180 individual homeowners that may have their own individual property maintenance issues. So it's one thing to consider when you look at these projects that are going to be under kind of a master developer, master property ownership association type of thing. So that said, this is a study session item. I do not have a staff report recommendation, or should I? It has not been fully vetted. But I did want to present to you the facts of the current presentation, the current project that's proposed there, and allow you to have some informal discussion. We can banter back and forth without any additional input.
Any comments?
First of all, I'd say kudos for bringing the study session concept to Chino Valley. It's much needed. That being said, could you tell me, is there any difference under the existing zoning for the number, for the density, as opposed to with the pad overlay?
That's a very good question, Commissioner Bacon. The zoning actually could allow for multifamily development. In fact, the prior project, I should have noted, had an approval for upwards of, I think, nearly 300 apartments. So that could have been a prospective development pattern that occurred here. And in fact, in the future, he's spoken about this perhaps being apartments. But in terms of the overall impact on density, the commercial light provision for multifamily development only establishes, oddly enough, a minimum unit size. It actually doesn't establish a density cap, whereas the multifamily zoning district does have a density cap, because it says you must have at least 3,000 square feet of land area for every unit. That works out to about 14.5 units per acre as a cap. It's something I think that likely will be addressed in a future code update, because it's kind of, the only thing you have to do is provide an 800 square foot unit or larger, and it doesn't say anything else. So you can imagine where that could go. So it's on the list.
Can you refresh me of the open space requirement for pads?
For PDs, the specific open space requirement is not necessarily open. The PAD flexibility offers you the discretion as a commission to look at each project and its individual nature and prospective impact on adjacent properties. In this case, they've provided the green space here for a variety of purposes, whether it's drainage or I can let Mr. Fletcher's engineer speak to the exact purpose of it, but they have provided a green space buffer on the perimeter. And they provided the clubhouse. We don't have a specific set, that I'm aware of, a set percentage of open space of when you develop non-commercial uses and a commercial zoning district. I think we just have to use good planning sense and think, do we feel this is enough? And if we don't, then we could suggest, hey, we need more green space, or we need more perimeter buffer because we're concerned about impacts.
Well, judging by the way things have been going with this commission, we like open spaces and lots of amenities.
Thank you, Chair. We've conveyed that too with Mr. Fletcher, and so this little green space has been growing a little bit. And if you think there's more, if you have specific suggestions, so that as we look at this and process it, this is a significant number of units. This isn't a little 20 rental space community. There's a couple hundred in here. I forget off the top of my head. I apologize. It's like 2 something or higher, plus of all these RVs. This could be quite the party pad with all these people here. So something to consider.
Any other questions?
Do we anticipate this being town sewer and water?
Yes. I would like to add on, as I spoke earlier about those improvements that they built years ago and got the tax rebate on, sales tax rebate, was to cover costs of those extensions, because those extensions not only help to serve this project, but to be an economic development incentive for other parcels in the
Right.
area.
Which helps bring other things in, like grocery stores and retail outlets and all the things we'd like to see here.
Absolutely.
I take it the developer has some sense of the individual size of the rental properties when he figured out 240 units. It's not in the staff report.
And that's correct. And and thank you for bringing that question up. In fact, I've spoke with the applicant's engineer, and I've asked them to provide a typical space detail. as you found on your West Meadows PAD project, we have this base detail of the minimum widths and depths, and you get more sense of how each of these park models can play out. And then this is also intended to be a park model development. We really haven't advertised the other one. I shouldn't speak actually, since it's off the agenda now, we've already acted on it. But this one is specifically to park models. I'm not certain that we could place mobiles on the size of the spaces. I won't know until I see it, or if they'd even want to do so, because it really doesn't work with that seasonal short-term concept, because mobiles are, I think, a bit more, they're not as movable. And again, I would clarify that what I do like about this project as an initial review is that the RVs are specified for their own place,
Right.
and the park models are in their own place. And we've had, as you can see through the town, we've had instances of mobile home parks somehow mysteriously show up with RVs popping up in place of mobile homes, and it is a conflict with their zoning, so this locks in the plan.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alrighty, so I think we went from 7 to 8A all in one smooth motion there.
Yes, thank you. And we do intend to bring this back probably before you, I would say, as an action item on a public hearing. It's looking like next month. Town Council is also getting the study session concept for both this and West Meadows before they take action in September.
I'd like to compliment you. This is very helpful for us. We get, usually this gets slammed into us in one meeting, and we're trying to figure all of it out and come up with ideas. This is very, very helpful. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're gonna move forward to item 9, which is public comments. Call to the public is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on any issue within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not on the agenda. Public comment is encouraged. Individuals are limited to speak for 3 minutes. We have a total time frame of 30 minutes. And the only action the commission can take on this is to direct staff to study whatever matter or scheduling it for further consideration and a decision at later date or responding to criticism. So if anybody would like to speak, please step up to the podium, state your name, and you have 3 minutes, and be polite.
Darren Mahoney again, 1629 Bumblebee. I'm a new resident up here. Moved up here about 6 months ago with my wife. We moved out, it's quiet, but I'm seeing, and I understand people make money and sell their properties and do stuff, and the 55 thing kind of scares me. That's not retirement. I'm not gonna retire at 55. I'm also concerned because I'm off of 4 North. I saw that there was I overheard a gentleman talking about he was trying to develop 1 acre lots off of 4 North and Bacon. So there's gonna be a bunch of lots going in there, and then there's one up there by the windmill that I heard that was gonna be going in. I'm just kinda concerned, they're all retirements, or is there a way that I personally can find out about that, or I'm new to this, so, forgive me.
Probably Mr. Sanks could probably address that for you. I'm sure he would be glad to sit down and visit with you. and-
I came from a small town in Laveen, Arizona, and it was a good country town, and they kind of did the same thing. We went to the meetings, and it was just going to be this and this. You wouldn't catch me walking through Laveen at night right now. And that's my concern. I come up here to spend the rest of my life. I know a lot of you have lived up here a long time, and I want to kind of enjoy that part of it. I have no problems about growth, but I do have concerns. If I'd have known that all that development was gonna go, I would have never bought the property. Because it scares me, because I don't want to end up like I was back there. So that's my concern. I appreciate it. I know, Mr. Fletcher, I know he means well and all that, but I feel like I do have to voice my concern. I don't mean any ill will or any failure parts on that onto him. But I would like to know where I could find out what else is gonna go on 4 North and 1 West. It's a little scary for me.
And be aware that none of us really know
Yeah.
what happens in the future with people's properties. There's a lot of open land in this town.
Right.
And there is gonna be development, and I don't know
Right.
about the rest of the
Understand. And again,
commissioners.
to support the town, can it support that?
Right.
That's, really, I go to Safeway and I have to stand in line for 20 minutes just to get an item rung up.
One of the ways to help remediate that is give some other store a reason to show up here, and
Yeah,
that takes people
I
to do
understand
that.
But
And
that's all, that's my concern, so
We
thank you.
appreciate your comments, thank you. And the best way for folks to participate is to come to these meetings and stand up and talk to us. Anybody else from the public like to speak? All right, we're gonna close this part of the meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I oppose. Oh, no, just kidding. We're done. Thank you, folks.